Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the U Spray podcast with Toddy and Mitch. This is episode number 22. And what we're going to start off with today, just chatting a bit about what's been happening here at the Spray Gun Club and some exciting things we have moving forward. And what do we got? We've got some new products coming your way. We have some new diaphragm machines, some different tips and accessories that we think that you guys are going to be excited about. So keep an eye out for that on socials and our website. Also, we're not sure if we've given her a shout out yet, but we have Jess, our marketing extraordinaire, that is with us at the Spray Gun Club. So a lot of the stuff that you see behind the scenes and on socials is by her and our amazing support team of Christine and Alex that also help her out. And we have had Mark just start with us this week, and Mark is our new customer relations manager, and he will be leading up distribution, working with our distributors and all our customers, and as an extension of Toddy and myself, just so we can continue to provide you guys an awesome service. So Toddy, how you been, bro? What do you got for me? Anything exciting?
The new products are pretty exciting. Yeah,
They will be, yeah.
I remember when I was working at Wagner, trying to find a affordable petrol machine was nearly impossible. So we used to have a really small thing called the Pro Coat once when I was at Wagner that was cheap and affordable, but nowadays you can basically not find anything. So I'm pretty excited about the potential of having something for the groundskeepers or farmers, guys that have heaps of fence to spray and whatnot.
Yeah, cool, man. So what we're going to kick off things today. Now, wanted to talk to you about, you initially started your working career in the paint industry at Sherwin-Williams in the US, and then you came out here, spent some time in paint stores, like in Bunnings, other paint stores, and as a tech and everything. Now, I just wanted to ask you, like working in the stores in the US, stores in Australia, what's the biggest difference that you noticed? Was it things in the store were different, the products, how it was sold, how expensive things were, how the subcontractors are different to tradies out here? What were the biggest differences you found?
Now that I think about it, one thing I did notice was there's way more paint shops there than there are here per capita. So I remember in Salt Lake City, where I was living before I moved here, there would have been a dozen Sherwin-Williams within a 30-mile radius.
Yeah, wow.
Or 50-mile, I don't know how big, however many kilometers it is, but yeah, there are heaps. And when I compare our store budget, whatever it was, it wasn't millions like it is here. So I don't know if that was because there's way more demand and there are more shops around for that or what, but yeah, that's one big thing. From a spray perspective, way more people spray over there. Part of that would be cost of sundries, cost of labor is quite a bit less. It's a box of tape there would be a fraction of the cost of a box of tape here, which would contribute, obviously. And then obviously there's a lot more, Wagner and Graco are based in the US, so there's probably a bit more focus on it locally there. So guys are a bit more incentivized to do it and well educated. But some of the main differences I found over there was typically from a spraying perspective. When I was at Sherwin, we used to give away strainers with roof or orders of paint. If we knew the guys were going to be spraying, we'd supply them with strainers. Which even back then, that was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. A lot of painters will say, it's a new paint, we shouldn't have to strain it. I was like, well, yeah, you do.
What do you mean, bro? Isn't the suction filters on the end, isn't that your strainer for paint?
And over there, there's not as much of a focus on backrolling. Obviously, it's important in terms of like uniformity You know, I remember we used to highlight it when we'd go to houses. You look down the hallway, and you could just see the builders, whether they're a good builder or not.
Yeah.
You know, so the back rolling was
Hallway.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it was kind of new to me here. One of the things that I noticed was when you have over here, you got plasters and painters, which are two separate trades. And so one of the main reasons why you back roll is to collect the dust that's left behind. Because if you ask the painters whose job it is to dust the wall, it's obviously the plaster's job because he made the dust. Or if you ask the plaster, it's the painter's job. Whereas over there, you typically have a crew that does everything. They'll gap, they'll paint, they'll plaster, all that stuff. And oftentimes you have a general contractor who does everything from start to finish. You have a team for everything. So there's probably way more attention to detail over there because you're touching the whole thing, so there's no one else to blame. Whereas here, you know, as soon as someone else touches it, it's no longer your problem. You know, and so I'm sure you've had plenty of scenarios in your career where, you know, you have to like decide if I'm gonna meet a deadline and just accept it is for what it is, which I'm sure happens a lot here. Whereas over there, if you can control the whole process, you can streamline it and you can have a really efficient system. I can imagine it'd be really hard to go in and mask something today, knowing there's going to be 3 different tradies in and out all day. It's like, how do you plan for that? And then someone calls in sick, or it rains, or whatever. And it's just, I can imagine that would be you know, trying to schedule all that when you don't have control of most of the tradies like they would over there. That would actually make it way less efficient.
Bro, the amount of times over the years taping up kitchens or taping up bathrooms because the tiler's been in there, maybe done the floors, and then we're prepped, we're ready to come in. There's been a miscommunication between the tiler or the builder, or the tiler's just done whatever fuck he wants and comes in and just ripped all our plastic up, man. Oh, it used to it used to fire me up, man. Fuck, I like a lot of time goes into taping that, and just to pull it off, like, you know, but not even like just peel it off. It's just rip it off. What's going on now? Like, and I need to get in here. But yeah, it's funny when you talk about the whole back rolling thing because I feel like there's mixed opinions when it comes to back rolling, and I mean, like, some builders demand it, so you have to back roll all your coats. Yeah, and a lot of it's around helping hide poor plastering, that kind of stuff, and making sure there's plenty of texture on the walls. Now, a lot of guys like to back roll every coat. Now, for me, I used to like back rolling first coat, spray the second coat, back roll last coat. Now, there's a couple of different, you know, reasons behind that, and, you know, and guys would agree and disagree that it's easier to touch up if you have a bit of texture on there because you can get a, you know, small roller out, do a touch up if needed, blends in a bit better because it's, you know, that texture's on there. But also I've sprayed ceilings without back rolling. You can touch them up as well using a foam roller, you know, or you can just get the gun out and just spray it. And yeah, there's different ways to do it. But one of the reasons I like to back roll as well is cutting out that human error with inexperienced people spraying. So if you've got an apprentice spraying or someone that hasn't sprayed a lot, you'll see that they like to spray far away from the walls, or they get the wiper scenario where, you know, they're real close and they're real far, and they're just wasting paint and getting a real uneven coat on it and on the walls and the ceiling. So by back rolling, ensuring an even coat, you know, if there is lighter spots, you can spread it out. You can also tell the person spraying, hey, you went light here, go a bit heavier, and it cuts out those kind of things. But I think with education and reps, obviously, I think you could spray a lot more and leave it when it comes to plasterboard. The thing is that we see a lot is when people spray, even their overlapping isn't great. Like, we see it on doors, gloss doors, that when you look at it on the side, it's patchy because they haven't overlapped lapped enough, yeah. So yeah, it's yeah, definitely mixed opinions on that, but I think a lot of it comes down to inexperience when spraying. Obviously, cutting out that human error. Also, some painters will say, it helps penetrate the plasterboard better by backrolling. Each to their own. What works for you, works for you. But hopefully, hopefully we can move away from this backrolling to help cover the shitty sets and shitty joints and shitty plasterwork. The only way that you're going to stop that is if you level 5 all the plaster. And I know like a lot of architectural homes are doing a lot of level 5 work these days. So yeah.
Isn't it funny how I was just thinking, when I was at Wagner, we used to have so many scenarios because if you asked 100 people, 100 reps, 100 painters, the perception of what is supposed to be or what's spec, whatever, is so different. And I remember one time I went to I won't mention it, but it was a big commercial building, new housing place with one of our partners at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of me going in there was to highlight the air-assisted airless. And so the purpose of the air-assisted airless is it gives you, an HVLP style finish at the speed of an airless. Really nice finish, awesome finish, because guys want a really sexy flat panel door. And I remember I was on site, there was like 30 or 40 painters there, and I started spraying it, beautiful finish. And then the paint rep comes over with this big nap roller and just rolls it off. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, Australian standard, you have to back roll everything. And I was like, here we go. But it's funny, and everyone's like, how good's that finish? And I'm just looking at this thing like, it was so good before, and I just back rolled it. And I just remember thinking like, this is so wild that this particular paint manufacturer, that's how they present this. And it's like, and it could be the same paint manufacturer, a different rep will go, no, you only have to back roll the first coat, sand it, top coat. And it's like you get two different perceptions of that, which may totally determine the end user's experience because who doesn't want a really sexy flat panel door? And so it's like there's an opportunity there for someone to miss out on something based on just lack of knowledge. It just highlights to me, that's another thing that, as simple as that is, it's completely gray on what nobody really knows what the spec is or what the standard or what that is. And so, people are kind of left to, as you were saying before, hopefully we can get to a standard, a new building, a new housing. This is a perfect example where what was being acceptable as a new housing job was this orange peeled glossy door. And that was deemed as the best finish they've ever seen. And I was just thinking to myself, like, man, something's not right here. Because you go to a completely different site, same company, same builder, same everything, and have a completely different experience about what the standard is. And yeah, it's crazy to me. And so when you have those as options and you're paying the same for either one, then eventually that's going to kind of lead towards whichever one requires less amount of skill, less amount of work.
Yeah, well, it's even like I remember some doors, on some really high-end architectural homes that we did, probably 20 to 30 doors, man, and we sprayed them and they looked like absolute glass. Fuck, they were nice. Anyway, chippies went and put them back up. Dirty hands, marks, chips out of the door. And I just seen them all hung and I'm just like, bro, and I was like, you're just gonna have to roll an extra coat and I'll fix you up for it. Went around and did extra coat and bro, like the roll looked nowhere as near as good how these doors come up sprayed. And I'm just like, like the care factor taken in this was just, there was none, to be honest. And it was when you're trying to elevate in an industry like whether it was spraying doors or finish spraying door jambs or windows, like, man, they look so good and people agreed that they look so good, but it was just like the care by other people in looking after it. It just wasn't, it just didn't exist, and you just ended up having to go around and redo it all, and you ended up doing it, by brush because you couldn't respray it, and it's just like, it made it like it honestly just hurt the soul. You know, you're just trying to do this awesome, sexy finish, and it's got like dings or marks in it. Of it just But anyway,
I remember a customer of mine, a painter, when I was at Wagner, and he was new to new housing, and he did the most amazing job. And I remember he was so passionate about his product. He's so proud of it, and he's like, and the guys love it. Everyone loves it. But I met him like 6, 7 months later, and he looked just so beat. I was like, dude, what's going on? He's like, man, I went into this trying to elevate the system and like stand out, but it's like there's just no opportunity to make more money. And he's like, you're kind of forced to accept a standard because it's all being paid for. And like to him, it was like he negotiated with himself and sacrificed his integrity basically to fit a job.
Yep.
And I remember thinking like, man, that is so horrible. You hear it all the time. Painters are like, oh, I can't spray it because you can't back it up. You can't backroll. You can't touch it up.
Yeah.
I was like, why didn't you touch it up? Because the builders. It's like, that shouldn't be your problem, mate. It is, unfortunately. But it's like, it shouldn't be your problem. It's like, at some point, the painting industry needs to put some pressure on the builders and say, man, you need to hold your builders to a better standard, man. Because the sad reality is they don't even have to fix it.
Yeah.
It's the painter's job. And it's like, the painter's done such a good job, and they're off to the next job, and they're being drugged back to touch up stuff that they didn't even do, often at no cost, which is wild.
And while we are on the acronamel train, bro, talking about, spraying the acronamels and stuff, something that we've spoken about in regards to Wagner tips and coming with the red filters. You get fine finish tips, some of the HEAs coming with red filters, and why that is setting guys up for failure when it's coming to spraying acronamels. So you're going to go into a bit about that?
So my opinion, I guess, is I don't know, because I don't know where the industry or where the market is. They do all the tests and stuff to determine what goes where, what goes why. But I know in the UK, like you were saying before about, or you said we talked about before about having to heat the paint up. Which obviously makes the paint thinner. Some places you have really thick emulsions, you got to thin it a lot. And so maybe in those industries, there's a call for really thin acrylics. But typically when we recommend a red filter, we would say clears, stains, maybe water-based or oil-based enamel that's been thinned a bit. And because it's so fine, so it's paint, acrylic paint's thick, water-based enamel stick, it's all thick. So it struggles to actually go through that. And so anybody who's sprayed Dulux acronamel, for example, one of the main reasons why you're struggling to get rid of tails is because they use a red filter. They go buy a 310 tip, which I would recommend, by the way. It comes with a red filter, and most guys just assume that's the filter it comes with, chuck it in there, and they can't get rid of the tails. And so what's happening is they have this really fine filter, and it's struggling to go through it. So it's kind of like trying to drink a thick shake through a straw. You can't do it. And so the only way to fix it is to get a stronger set of lungs or a bigger straw. If you've got a big thick straw, it's really easy to drink it up. So we would always recommend not use the red filter, use a yellow filter, which will allow it to go through it quicker and reduce that as a problem. And it's common in the wintertime. You'll see people start getting tails with ceiling flat because they're using too small a filter or too small of a tip. You see it on roof membrane all the time. Guys pull the filter out, trying to get it to not have any resistance, but they're actually having the reverse effect. You should use a coarse filter to actually allow it to flow through quicker. And all these things, again, like no one's out there telling these guys, and they just assume they're the problem. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't have to be that way. It's just a matter of just a little bit of understanding. We had a guy, shout out to Grant, last week, and he come in to use, he was spraying enamel. And he come in and hired a machine off us. And in past, he's had issues with spraying enamels. It doesn't atomize properly, or the finish goes a bit dull. Typically, that's because the guys will recommend you to use terps to thin it out. But we recommended them. You got to use this spray thinners that you get from Diggers, which works really, really good, and thin it 15%, not 10%, which goes against most recommendations. And Spray is beautiful. The best experience. And it's like little things like that that you'd only learn from experience. And unfortunately, the limited amount, most it used to be reps were pretty skilled on what they were talking about. Nowadays, most reps are just aren't to that level of understanding to where they can't really offer those tricks of the trade, I guess.
Yep.
And they're kind of left to go by spec, which are designed to ensure that more people will have success with the least amount of potential dramas if they follow that spec. So I get it, but it's that's a byproduct of losing lack of knowledge and skills over time. You gotta build a system that's easy to follow and has less problems, less risk of having issues if they just follow it. And then instead of doing what we were trying to do and educating people so that they can have the best experience with whatever tools they got, and because at the end of the day, it's their problem, not no one's coming to help them. Which we talked about a lot.
Yeah. No one's coming to save them for sure. So the other thing I wanted to discuss is, and I know you had an experience when you were at Wagner in regards to a paint injection, and what we're going to talk about is what we see with a lot of repairs and service, and we see this when we're on site, is guys with kinks in their hose, they're worn through the top layers, half hanging off, and they don't want to replace their hose. They just keep going instead of replacing it. So, yeah, it may be okay, but there's also the risk of getting, a paint injection. And I want Toddy to go into that and talk about his experience and why you should consider changing your hose.
Yeah, so prior to this experience, I never really considered it. Like, you'd advise people and stuff, you should buy a new hose, but you wouldn't really press it. It just is what it is. Guys do what they want, fine, whatever. But I had an experience when I was at Wagner. I won't mention any names, but they'll know who I'm talking about, and most guys who are close to me would be familiar with this scenario. But I was invited to site to do a demo on air assisted airless again. It's pretty common at the time. Great demo, great experience, and left them with the machine, ended up buying the machine. And then the next day they went to the job, had a great experience, worked really good. But then at the end of the job, the applicator cleaned the machine out, was ready to put it away, and realized they hadn't actually cleaned the tip out yet. So he put the machine back together, cranked up the pressure, and wasn't paying attention and shot himself in the finger. So the two things that are crazy about that is, one is it wasn't even paint; it was like milky water. So that's pretty dangerous. So just anybody watching, that's just as dangerous as paint. And then he ended up long story short, he ended up losing his finger. So which is probably best case scenario, really. You see it all the time. We see painters come in with missing an arm or half a hand or whatever. But for me, it was personal because I knew this guy very well. Good friend of ours, used to come play golf with us all the time. And so from that point on, anytime I see a kink in a hose, I tell the guy, like, you have to replace your hose. And if they deny it, I actually remove the hose from the gun and send it back with them off the gun, because it's like I don't want that on my conscience, because I've seen it firsthand. It's actually quite full on. So
yeah, because guys like to, if they get a burst in the line or anything like that, tend to want to grab it with their hand or put their foot on it, which is and that much pressure coming out the line going straight into your skin.
Yeah, another one is just using the safety. Most guys don't use the safety, and then they'll pass the hose down, and guys will grab the gun and pull the trigger and shoot themselves or shoot old man in the leg.
The trigger has a safety.
And then so like there's things that can be done. A lot of guys chop the trigger guards or the tip guards off. I get it. I get it, and I understand why guys do it. But it's just one of those triggers to remind you that it's unsafe not to put your hand in front of the gun.
Yep.
Not to grab the gun from the tip, like some people do sometimes. And I think so. Now, if I ever see, basically, if there's one thing I want people to get out of this, is if you have a kink, if you have any tear in the skin, if it's getting too stiff to turn, replace it.
Yep.
Because not only is it going to cost you a potential harm, which is the worst case, but the amount of money it's going to cost you if it does burst. Anyone who's pulled a hose across the gutter and cut it, freaking big mess, man.
Oh, yeah. I was just about to say, if it's not around the safety thing, it's around, if that hose gets caught on some brickwork, if you're outside or on something, you're working in someone's house or you're on a roof, like, pressure out of that, you could have paint spraying over your neighbours, and I've seen it. Like, not me personally, but yeah, I've seen it happen to people where it's burst and just sprayed all over the driveway, all over the house they're doing, next door neighbour's house, and he was up on a roof spraying and come down to that. So yeah, it happens. So that's another reason to consider it, because it could cost you a lot more than just your hose. So. That's another episode in the books. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep spraying.